John, thanks for joining us. We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
We love your last drive-in background you have going on.
Yeah, I figured out how to use Zoom in a proper way and get this little thing back here so everybody knows, even if we're not talking about it. It's all about the last drive-in.
It really is.
So how have you been handling yourself during this whole horrible 2020 we've been having?
Oh, I got to tell you, it's horrible that people are dying and it's horrible that people are stuck at home and all that. But for me, it's been great. I mean, I like not having to go to people's stupid functions and,
Oh, yeah.
Are you kidding?
I can't argue with that.
Yeah. I was literally talking to my partner a couple days ago about, like, she and I are both just not very social people. And I was like, dude, this is the best thing that's ever happened to us. Like, all I got to do is sit at home and watch horror movies. This is great.
Exactly.
I can't make your grandma's birthday party because I have to be safe.
Exactly. So many Saturday nights were saved. And now I can just chill and, like, sit at home and watch movies. Plus, luckily, I got on unemployment, which I deserved because
of course.
I had 3 jobs canceled. I would have made a lot of money this year. I'm just putting it out there. And I got totally obliterated by the pandemic. So luckily I got the unemployment.
Same.
Yeah. I mean, I have no shame in saying it because I would have been dead without it. Like, seriously, it would have been a horrible year.
Yeah. Right. No, I don't think there's any shame in that at all.
Well, slight. Like if I was stealing it, you know what I mean? Or if I didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
But what's life without a little shame? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. It's a kink.
Well, right. I think that this pandemic thing has really kind of given people a perspective on, like, what creative people do for a living, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
I know at least here in Maryland, they had to pass a law saying that unemployment was now available to people who were, like, gig workers for a living.
Okay.
Like that's what we both gig worked before this. So like, when I found out I could get unemployment and they were recognizing being a musician as a career, I was like, what? Where the fuck were you, like, 20 years ago? Like,
I could have been sucking off the tit of the state for all these guys.
Exactly. I could have gotten fucking health insurance in my 20s. That would have been great.
Yeah, I mean, look, but it really is sad. I mean, I knew a couple of people who passed away from it, which really sucks. So I joke, but it really, to me, I just want the world to sort of get back to normal now. Yeah. Like, we've had it, we did it, and let's just get back to being able to go out and be normal people. Because when I go out to stores and things, people are fucking nuts.
Oh yeah,
they're nuts. Yeah. It's over. Like, and even when they say that we don't need to wear the mask anymore or the vaccine, there's going to be residuals of this for many years to come, where people are like germophobic. You go on a movie set, people are already neurotic enough. Now you add in the pandemic and the COVID stuff, it's really horrible.
Oh, yeah. Even if COVID just disappeared tomorrow, which is not the case, even if it did, the fear that, like, it was instilled by it and the fear of the handshake, is not going to go away.
Yeah, totally. And, like, I just, I really miss concerts. Concerts is sort of like my spiritual church. They're my church. Like, every year I've seen Fish maybe 88 times. Don't judge me. Yeah, but once a year I would see them at Madison Square Garden. That would be like my cathartic end of the year. Like, I would smoke a lot of weed, just think about what I'm going to do for the year to come, and then all those things come true. Now I don't have that. I don't have that this year, so I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right.
Yeah, man.
At the fairgrounds where we live, they've been doing, like, drive-in concerts where you can drive, like, they'll broadcast it on a big-ass screen and you can drive your car up and everything. And I mean,
cool.
There's a camaraderie there, and there's that sort of sense of, it's almost like going to a festival, you know what I mean, where you're friends, but you're also not allowed out of your car. So you just have to sort of like wave at your friends from across the parking lot.
Yeah, you just have to hotbox your car alone.
Exactly.
Right?
Which, hey, I've been doing that since like 98. So.
It's like, I thought high school was over.
It's not the worst, but it's also not the best.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So how has all this stuff affected Joe Bob's last drive-in?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we've gotten to the cabin, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So the special. So now we're in the cabin, and I hope that we can continue to be in the cabin and that nothing bad happens, because we got a lot of cool stuff coming up on the drive-in. As far as like Christmas, he's going to save Christmas for everybody.
Right. We got Joe Bob Saves Christmas happening December 11th.
That's right.
What can you tell us about what we can maybe expect out of that?
I can tell you that it's Christmas themed.
You know what? That's perfect because it's Christmas.
Well played.
I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, no, I can't really say anything like to reveal what the picks are, but I know one of the picks is an excellent movie. Some people were grumbling online about Hack-O-Lantern and Haunt.
No way, dude. Hack-O-Lantern was fucking awesome.
Hack-O-Lantern was awesome, yes. And it's just like, I even like Dead or Alive 2, the one that people I saw complaining about the most,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you know what I liked about Hack-O-Lantern is that, everyone was like, oh, Halloween 3, but we've all seen Halloween 3 by this point.
Yeah.
Like, Hack-O-Lantern is like a deep cut. And like, that's a big reason I like Joe Bob is because of the deep cuts.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people forget that the very premise behind the show is drive-in movies that are under the radar, not the best movies ever, and Hack-O-Lantern fits that to a T.
Totally, you hit the nail on the head about that. It is about the exploitation, the drive-in, the movies that weren't in this multiplex. They weren't the mainstream movies. They were the drive-in movies, movies that played at midnight for 6 years in the 70s. Those are the movies that you want to see, and they're not always the best, but they have something to them that makes you excited, or there's just something that you don't see in a mainstream movie.
Nobody's going to Joe Bob to see Rosemary's Baby or The Omen. Like, that's not the point.
Even like a streaming culture now, you can't just pop on Netflix and find Hack-O-Lantern, right? So like Joe Bob is still pulling movies out that even streaming culture isn't providing you.
Yeah,
exactly, which is true. And you're right, but I would like to actually see Joe Bob do Rosemary's Baby. I think that would be great.
Yeah.
I just want to hear what he has to say about Roman Polanski and all that stuff.
You know what? It should be like an offshoot where it's like Joe Bob's Masterpiece Theater, where he does really classy movies, and there's a lot of leather-bound books about him.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm into that too.
Yeah. We put a robe on the guy. He would look great in a robe.
Hell yeah.
So how did you get involved with Joe Bob in the first place? Like, were you a fan of like Monster Vision? Were you a fan of?
Oh yeah, I loved Monster Vision back in the day. I used to watch that. Obviously the Friday the 13th thing is the marathon. Everybody goes to that.
Yeah.
I used to tune into that. And that was like sort of how I started to watch him. And then I would just tune in every once in a while. And I knew of him even before that when I was a really little kid, and I would have sleepovers with my cousins. And he was on the movie channel.
Sure.
Right.
And I was like really, really little. And I was like, who's this like weird cowboy guy introducing these movies? I don't even remember what movies I watched, but it was probably some horror thing. Now, fast forward to many years later, I was working at Troma, and Matt Mandrides and Justin Martell, the producers of The Last Drive-In, they're Troma guys. Like, they started at Troma.
Okay.
And just through knowing them and doing stuff at the company, many years later, when they got in touch with Joe Bob, they asked me if I was interested in doing a demo for a theme song.
Oh, hell yeah.
And it just worked out. Like, I've never in my professional creative career have had something that was so fast.
Sure.
and positive. Like, usually I get destroyed by the world. Usually everyone's against me and all the forces are suppressing me. Or at least that's how I feel.
Sure.
In this regard, it was like, can you do the demo? Yes. A day later, I had it. A day later, the director, Austin Jennings, was like, "Oh, this is it. If you could just add like this, and this," and that was it.
Incredible.
Well, the rest was history. So, to anyone out there that's struggling creatively for many years, like I was, almost 2 decades, and feeling like maybe nothing's happening, just hold on.
Sure.
It can happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so that's really how I got involved, and then I got deeper involved once I met Joe Bob and stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that. And you seem to have a really fun job on the show, like being the music guy. That's a pretty awesome role to have, I think, on the show.
It's cool, but also behind the scenes, I also do a lot of other stuff, man. I mean, I even do the catering. I do everything.
Hell yeah.
See, this is what Troma taught me.
Right.
Is that for anything, even from scrubbing the toilets to the top, to producing, to directing, any of that stuff, I'm not above or below any of it. So if I believe in the project or the person behind the project, like Lloyd or Joe Bob, I'll do whatever it takes. So,
if you're doing indie filmmaking, you're not doing like 4 jobs on set, then are you really doing indie?
What are you doing?
Right.
You're not doing anything.
Exactly.
There's people that just sit around and look at their computers pretending to work. That's definitely not me.
Right.
So I go out, I'll pick up the catering, I'll sweep the floors, then I'll do technical stuff, or I'll do songs, I'll act, anything.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
That's another piece of advice that I have to people who are coming up. Do anything that you're asked.
Yeah.
Because eventually you may land a role, then meet the person who will give you the bigger role, and blah 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 blah, and it all snowballs.
Well, and I feel like a lot of times you hear, especially with like genre films, you hear of directors sort of collecting a family as they go on, right? And you see guys like Tarantino that are huge and have the same actors in their enormous big budget films that they had when they were making, these shoestring budget movies. And I think it's because of what you're talking about. I think it's because they watch those guys that are like, this is the motherfucker that went and got catering on the smallest film I made, and I'm going to give him a lead role in this movie, in this blockbuster movie that I'm making.
100%.
There's definitely, I think there's a familial aspect to it, right? At least I see that in The Last Drive-In. I see the way you guys interact with each other, and as gruff and as grumpy as Joe Bob seems on camera, like I definitely get the feeling that he's very much like a paternal figure, right? Like this,
he's a mentor. I mean, in fact, the other day I was sitting there, getting a little down on myself or whatever, and my girlfriend was just like, Joe Bob worked with Scorsese and Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro, and you work with him.
Yeah.
So chin up, how many people would want to be in that position? I'm like, yeah,
you're right.
You know what? That's right. He's worked with legends. So I can whenever I get down, it's like, you know what? I can glean the sort of essence off of Joe Bob, like some sort of a vampire, and maybe take some of that.
Yeah, like an energy vampire, sure. But I think all creative people are kind of like that, right? It's very easy to lose perspective of what you're doing and just get down about the things you theoretically haven't done yet, right?
Yeah, or just how the state of the world is, and when am I going to be able to do this or that, the other thing, it really is sort of a strange holding pattern this year. So I just hope it gets back to normal,
right?
At least with work.
And when I get down about that kind of thing, the one thing that kind of helps me is knowing that it's not just me, right? Knowing that everybody's in this boat.
Yeah, totally.
Seeing the workarounds that we've seen a lot of creatives come up with throughout this, seeing people, forcing creation to happen regardless, you know what I mean? Seeing people find ways to just make shit happen throughout this is the most inspiring and encouraging thing ever. Because it's like, man, we can still do this. We can still be a part of it.
And, stuff like even Bandcamp, even though whatever, they take a lot of money from you, they still give you a hosting platform that's all yours.
Exactly.
Which is amazing. But they waive the fees for that, one Friday a month, which is really cool.
Yeah, they've been doing that for a while. That is cool.
Yeah, so stuff like that. But just to get back to Joe Bob, yes, he is a mentor. He's somebody that I think he inspires a lot of greatness out of people, especially that one Cut of the Dead speech.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That was really inspiring about just go do it, go make your movie, because I was reading up on Steven Soderbergh, right? The director. He made a movie, I didn't know this, on just an iPhone. It's called Unsane.
Yeah.
Holy crap, man.
Yes.
And I watched it. It's pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, if a guy like that is going to go down a level and just show you that you can eat. Okay, fine. He did have $1 million to make the movie or whatever it was. I think it was $1.2 million. But still, he has the same exact tools that we have in our pocket, so we can go out and make that film.
Yeah, he's demystifying that idea that you have to have this $30,000 camera to go shoot something, right? He's demystifying that and showing you the tools that everybody has in their hand, and just raw creativity can make a film.
Yeah,
absolutely. So another thing that I had going on was we made this short movie. Do you remember the Corman Challenge? Did you guys ever do anything with that?
Oh yeah, he had that little the hopefully last ever quarantine festival, right?
Yeah, so that inspired a lot of people, which I thought was really cool. And my girlfriend was staying with me and my folks during the pandemic, and because we didn't want to stay in the city, and it's like a shoebox apartment, and no windows. Forget it. We needed a yard, so we stayed here, and just through her sort of meeting my family for a real first time. You know what I mean? When you live with somebody, it's totally different.
Yeah, sure.
And she was just seeing things around the house, pictures or this or that. And she constructed this short movie, My Brother Jeffrey. And it's based on my family. But then because of it, we didn't win the Corman Challenge, obviously. But we then made a sequel. Then we made a third one, and now it's online. And now, that was all iPhone filmmaking, and it inspired me to be maybe we could just make features for like $3,000 on iPhone.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh
right.
yeah.
I think that's the next step, you know?
Well, it's funny. You mentioned earlier Joe Bob, worked with Scorsese and Pesci and De Niro,
Sure.
but he also is really good friends with like Frank Henenlotter.
Henenlotter, yeah.
Yeah, these guys that are like exactly what you're talking about. Guys that just were going to make the fucking movie they were going to make, regardless of who told them what. You go back and look at Basket Case, and like, there's no production company in the world that would sign off on making Basket Case, but he still fought. We're like Frankenhooker, but he still made those movies because it was in him to make them, right?
Yeah, and Joe Bob also, to his credit, was like, I think the person who was the only person who wanted to review it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
right.
Something like that.
Right.
And it just helped Henenlotter so much. I guess he was appreciated.
Well, and when you think about like the essence of like gritty grindhouse drive-in films, like that's what that is, like to a T. We interviewed Kevin Van Hittenreich like a year or so ago, and just getting his perspective on it blew our minds. My point is that like it's nice to hear that Joe Bob is that sort of mentor, right? Because he's the kind of guy that's going to hang out in the trenches with Henenlotter and also film with Scorsese.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he's still got both of those perspectives to bring to the table.
It's the high and the low.
Yeah,
it's,
that's right.
I could appreciate, or obviously Joe Bob could appreciate the trash and the treasure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So on the Christmas special that's coming up, can we look forward to a new Christmas song? Because I gotta say, Red Christmas has become maybe one of my favorite Christmas songs.
Oh, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yes, I love that song.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Lips are sealed on the what's in the content of the show.
All right.
Okay. All right.
But,
heard.
He didn't say no. That's what I
He
heard.
didn't. Yeah, exactly. I didn't hear a no. That's understandable, though.
Lips are sealed. But as far as Red Christmas goes, I'll give you a small backstory because that was the hardest one that I had to do.
Really?
So Austin and Joe Bob had written the script, and they said, we want a very, very sad song. I didn't get to see the script, but Austin sort of told me the idea behind it, and I wrote another version of it, and didn't work. Wrote another version of it, didn't work. And finally, Austin was like, I think that you just never experienced the kind of sadness that we're talking about. And I was like, what? Don't tell me how sad I can get. I can get sadder than all of you.
It's a sad off. It's a sad off.
It's a sad off. I can be the saddest in the room. But so Austin, then I said, why don't you just take a stab at what you think that the lyrics should be exactly, and then I'll write the song. So Austin did a pass at the lyrics, and they were great. All the stuff about this, the only snow I'm seeing is the static on TV.
Oh,
what
wow.
a great line.
Right.
Yeah, it
So
is.
with lines like that, I was able to then, I went back and listened to a bunch of Hank Williams and a bunch of sad cowboy songs,
Hell yes.
and I got that chord progression, and then it got approved. So that one was the hardest one, but thanks to Austin Jennings and his beautiful poetry, we were able to make that song happen, and I believe it's actually a really great Christmas song, truthfully.
Yes.
Yeah, it's timeless.
Yeah, and Joe Bob's delivery. So I wrote it in a lower register, which is my, natural register for that sort of a song.
Sure.
But Joe Bob comes out with this like high tinny.
Oh yeah. He's a cowboy.
He's a cowboy, and he killed it.
One question I wanted to ask, and this is totally non sequitur. Is the show shot in LA or in Cali, or is it actually shot in Texas?
No, it's in Dallas.
I know the cabin stuff was in Jersey, right?
Right. Yeah, Jersey is where the cabin is.
Okay.
That's near or around Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
And but the main the seasons prior were in Dallas,
Okay.
in a studio where they shot RoboCop.
What?
Oh.
Yeah, they shot other stuff.
I knew there was something special about the vibe of that place.
Yeah. So that's where we set up, because to Joe Bob's credit, when we got renewed for after the marathon, the first marathon, the 26-hour one,
Yeah.
he wanted to go to Dallas because he had promised his Monster Vision crew that if he ever got a show again, he would like to rehire them.
Oh,
And
Oh.
he did exactly. He kept his word.
See, again,
That's
like, he's just a
awesome.
good dude.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's great.
And the flavor of the mixture of the flavor of the old school and the new school, like us who were huge fans of the show, and then people who actually worked on the show, just was a great meeting of minds.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it seems like that would be such a catalyst for cool shit to happen.
It was. It is. It continues.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I hope it continues for. I'm predicting hopefully 5 seasons, and we're in season 3 now,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Or
I'd
this is
love to see it.
well, we're still in marathons, so
Right.
technically not season 3, but I think we have at least 3 more years.
Okay.
I could see it
Okay.
easily.
I would love it.
easily.
I
I
would
think
love
it
it.
remains one of the top favorites on Shudder. It's one of the reasons that brought me to Shudder in the first
Oh,
place.
yeah.
A lot of people come to Shudder, and but hey, people stay for Shudder because there's so much other cool
There
stuff.
really is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What movies do you want to see Joe Bob do that he hasn't done yet? Like what's your top 3 list?
Well, I have a very special double feature that I would love, which will never happen.
Hit me.
Yeah.
But it's a dream. It's the Rocky Horror Picture Show and Phantom of the Paradise.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Paul Williams, the songwriter and the star of Phantom of the Paradise, as the guest. Now, Paul Williams is like, to me, a god.
Mm-hmm.
That would be something to behold, I believe.
And so
Hell
why don't
yeah.
you think that could ever happen?
I think that with deeper things, like with the Disney basically owns Rocky Horror
Yeah.
now
Oh, yeah.
because of Fox.
And they don't play well with others.
Yes, and they also like started destroying independent theaters. They wouldn't book stuff like that was readily available to them for years, like Die Hard, or so now they're pulling all these classics back, and they're just probably going to dump them on Disney Plus. I don't know what
Right.
they're going to do, but basically Fox is screwed because
Yeah.
of Disney. Who knows? I mean, I'm not an executive.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
No, I mean you're not
What I've
wrong either.
read.
Though. Like
Yeah.
I know that even with what they've done in terms of like putting their more edgier stuff on Hulu and bringing the more family friendly stuff to Disney Plus is absolutely cannibalizing Fox's material already.
It sucks because I was reading an article about how these independent theaters were basically relying on the Fox catalog to survive.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were always available. They were the standbys. People loved to see them. They always did business. But now taking that away, plus the pandemic, plus this, it's just going to be a bad thing for theatrical, and it makes me kind of sad. Because again, it's like another spirituality is going to the movies.
Right.
Another spiritual experience.
Yeah, it's
So-
a whole separate experience of films that just isn't happening right now.
Well, one
Yeah.
thing that the pandemic did though is it sort of brought drive-ins back.
That's true.
Yes, it did.
Like we had a whole we talked a number of episodes ago about how over the summer there were
The
more
Wretched.
than
The Wretched.
yeah, the Wretched ended up becoming like the top grossing film because of drive-ins.
For like 6 straight weeks,
Yeah,
right?
which is wild.
That's insanity. I went twice this year for the first time ever to the Mahoning Drive-In.
Oh, very cool.
Mhm.
And it's that place has been around since the 50s, maybe even the 40s. I don't remember exactly, but it's one of the best places on earth for a movie lover.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
They can do 35 millimeter, all this stuff, but then they could also project VHS tapes onto the drive-in screen.
Fuck
They
yeah.
played Critters 4 for us. It's like, what?
Hell yes.
That's
Hell yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
We'll plug in the VCR. Who cares?
Yeah.
And it looks good.
That's
It's really
amazing.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. So, I mean, drive-ins coming back is a big deal, and I love that, and I hope it stays.
It is.
But I
Yeah.
also hope that we get AMC's red
Right.
reclining leather couches back too.
But I kind of attribute it to how when all music went digital and MP3s and streaming became such a thing, we saw such an increase in vinyl sales, right?
True. Yes.
And because I think once something goes so inherently digital and you lose that physical aspect, people start to kind of yearn for it again, right? And I think drive-in theaters are kind of the equivalent of like vinyl of the movie-going experience, right? People are missing a more nostalgic filmic experience. We can't go to theaters right now, so
Yeah.
drive-ins become really attractive.
Well, yeah.
It's great. Speaking of drive-ins and speaking of Troma, actually this Friday, it's this Friday, Shakespeare's Shitstorm, #Shakespeare's Shitstorm, the movie that I produced with Lloyd and Justin Martell of The Last Drive-In and Pat Kaufman, Lloyd's wife, will be playing at the Bel Air Diner in Queens.
Oh,
awesome.
hell yes.
Bel Air Diner is a pretty it's like almost like a landmark. It's a famous thing that's been around there for years, but they converted their parking lot into a drive-in, and they're allowing Troma to project
That's amazing.
whales shitting all over people.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like the phrase "they're allowing Troma to ... only happens once.
Well, you want to know what's funny is over the last in Halloween, over the last month, they were playing some Troma movies, and in fact, they only got one complaint, and it was because of Terra Firma.
Well,
that doesn't shock me at all.
And it was a car full of, it was like a mom with like 2 kids in the back, and they saw something in terra firma.
I mean,
it's impossible to say what.
I could think of any number of things that they saw in terra firma that
every frame.
Exactly.
But that's the charm, right? That's what we go there for.
That's the charm. I mean, I've been a fan of Troma since I'm a kid. I saw Class of Nukem High Part 2 on Cinemax or something when I was like 9.
Oh, hell yeah. And
that movie blew my mind because it's like a cartoon and it's for kids in a way, but then you have these like breasts and deaths and all this stuff. It's like an adult cartoon, so I never forgot it.
Well, I think the first thing I ever saw was like Toxic Crusaders, whatever the cartoon they made on Saturday mornings. So, and I mean, I was a kid when that came out.
Yeah.
And then I saw Toxic Avenger when I was like maybe 6, and like I have this memory seared into my mind of the scene where they drop the weight on that dude's head and it just explodes his fucking head. And like, as a 6-year-old, I was like, "What the fuck did I just see?"
Yeah,
but like in a lot of ways, that sort of like set the bar for me as far as what was gonna like upset me in movies.
And it is kind of cartoony, right? Because I feel like my early memory, and I think a lot of people's early memory, is seeing the artwork on the Toxic Avenger box, right?
Yeah.
In the movie store.
Totally.
And which is very like superhero-y. It's almost like and it's very cartoony, and you're like, what is this movie? It kind of looks like it's for kids, and you don't know what you're gonna get, and then it is what it is, right?
Absolutely. I think that Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD started out as a kids movie, and then Loydy was like, "No, we need deaths and rape," and he's
like, "What are you doing?"
Well, so how did you get involved with Troma to begin with?
I had moved back. I lived in LA, and I just wasn't doing anything really real out there, and I felt like let me just try New York because I'm hearing that the independent scene is amazing, and it seems easier to get into than the Hollywood Satan sucking elite. So anyway, I got back to New York, and I had just joined Twitter, and one of the people I followed was Lloyd, and Lloyd was tweeting stuff like, "If you have a script, send it to Uncle Loydy, or if you edit, come edit for Troma."
Yeah. And
I was like, "Yeah, I love Troma. I remember that I've enjoyed those movies. Let me go see what I could do," because I had just started editing for real.
Sure.
And I sent some of my stuff, and I just got to they allowed me to be a volunteer editor. And
awesome.
Which, some people will scoff at the fact that a lot of the stuff when you start with Troma is unpaid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that it's a great tool because if you're around and you're not doing anything really anyway, or if you're having troubles meeting people and you want to network, getting involved in something like Troma and doing it for free for a little bit it's amazing. And look, that's the only reason that I'm here right now talking to you guys about The Last Drive-In.
Right.
Is because I volunteered my time at Troma.
Well, people in all kinds of other fields do unpaid internships all the time.
Sure. Yeah, and I think it gets a bad rap. I don't know why. Like, I don't know. It's a whole other conversation as well because I hope some people. Anyway, so no, that's because I got to edit his Make Your Own Damn Movie lessons. So I got to work with Lloyd directly, and that was when it all started to click because he saw that I was like willing to do whatever.
Right.
Sure.
And that was it.
And Lloyd Kaufman has such an energy about him. I mean, I feel like it radiates through all his interviews. He just seems like an extremely fun person to work with. What is it like working with Uncle Loydy?
Oh my God, I laughed every single day. Even on the miserable days, there were moments where he would say something and make me laugh. I mean, it was amazing. He's a genius. He's also very giving. He helps everybody, but he also takes the time to meet everyone and to figure out how they can collaborate with him in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen it, like people would come in for the first day and be like, "Hi, I'm Lloyd Kaufman. What's your name?" "Okay." And then he would like say, "What are you good at? Oh, great. We need a poster. So can you do the Photoshop, blah, 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 blah." And then he would get them to do something creative. And then they would have that credit. If they wanted to then continue on and do more, they would, or if not, they just left.
So he's very good at finding people's place, like very quickly.
100%.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was a pleasure to watch him because I've taken things that I learned from Uncle Loydy and now I put them into my work. And there's some streamlined stuff that he does that are invaluable.
You have a long list of stuff you've done with Troma. What are some of your favorite things that you've put out? Because you've directed, produced, edited.
Yeah, I did. Like I said, I did everything from scrub the toilets to direct the movies. So a couple of the things that I liked, one was a VR movie that I got to do with Lloyd that is basically like the Toxic Avenger 4.5. It's like the thing that would be in between Citizen Toxic and whatever the next Toxic Avenger is.
Right.
It's not VR exactly. It's like a 360 movie. It's called Heart of Fartness.
Yep.
And it's about how the Toxic Avenger loses his Tromatons and he can't fight crime anymore. So he has to go away to Panama to do these like ayahuasca type drugs to get his mojo back.
Of course.
Oh, great.
Of course.
Yeah, it's great. And I got to voice the Toxic Avenger, and it's just like, it feels like that's probably the most canon Toxic Avenger thing that's happened in a long time.
Yeah.
Besides that, I got to play the Toxic Avenger on Comic Book Men, which is Kevin Smith's show.
Oh, yeah.
So that I feel like that's also, to me, more canon than most. Because, you know, you could go to Troma tomorrow and play the Toxic Avenger at the office for a picture or this or that. And that's cool. I love it. I used to do it all. I played Toxie 200 times. But doing it on a show like Comic Book Men was really special. I got to crush one of their heads, one of the Comic Book Men's heads.
Whose head did you get to crush?
The guy, Ming for sure, and I think the guy Mike Zipsick.
Yeah.
Those were because they were the two finalists. The episode is great. We had them audition for Shakespeare Shitstorm, and Ming actually won the role, and he's in the movie.
I'm actually surprised that Kevin Smith has not officially worked with Lloyd. Like, it just seems like, you know what I mean? They're both Jersey guys. Like, they both kind of have the same basic idea of how to make a film at an indie budget.
Sure.
Like, you would think that they would have collaborated like in a hard way at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I know there's rumors. I don't know if it's official, but I know that Kevin Smith at one point was looking to get the rights to the Toxic Avenger.
Really?
And I don't think it worked out because somebody else bought it. And that was those were the people who ended up like attaching Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then it all fell apart.
Yeah, I heard about that a while ago, where they were we're gonna do like a darker. Whatever.
How can you make a darker version of Toxic Avenger, first of all?
So, like, I don't know. It seemed weird because it wasn't Troma, right? It wasn't going to be a Troma Toxie.
No, it was completely another. It was another company that bought the rights to remake the movie. They put Lloyd and Michael's names on as executive producers, but they also would ask them, about casting suggestions, whatever. But ultimately, it wouldn't be a Troma feature; it would be its own thing.
Sure.
I read one of the scripts, and they weren't that good. So luckily, that moved on. No offense to whoever wrote it, but it was he was like a werewolf. Toxie could go from being a kid to a monster and back again. It wasn't the Toxic Avenger.
No, I'm not into that.
Well, it's like, because Toxic Avenger is Lloyd Kaufman's voice. He's like the voice of Troma. So like when you just take it and have somebody else try to do it, it's always going to be just like slightly off kilter. It's not going to be like. The weird thing that comes to my mind is the musician Daniel Johnston, if you're familiar with him at all.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, all his stuff is brilliant. He gets signed to Atlantic Records. They put out this really polished CD that just, like, sounds sonically, technically good, but it's just none of the feel of his old tape recordings are there, right? That's what it felt like. That's what I was expecting out of this Toxic Avenger remake, is we're going to take it, we're going to gloss it over, and it's just not going to have any of the charms of what Troma does with it.
Well, luckily now there's a guy, Macon Blair, who he works with Jeremy Saulnier. I think that's how you say his name. But he was in Green Room. He also co-wrote Blue Ruin. He wrote I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore, which was pretty good.
That movie's amazing.
Yeah, so he is now writing or has written the new draft of the Toxic Avenger. And I think that he, as a voice, could make a great mainstream Toxic Avenger movie and keep some of the grit, but also make something that's more accessible to everyone.
I'd be into that.
Hey,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, because we're not really, a Toxic Avenger isn't really doing much else, really, frankly. It would be kind of cool to see him become, like, seriously culturally relevant again. Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, there was a musical that was sort of recent, and that was really popular. But yeah, you're right. Like, since then, nothing has really happened. So I would love to see. And it's supposedly going to be by Legendary, who does like the Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
So it's going to look beautiful, at least.
So, not to cut off Toxie, but talk to me about Bacon Cheeseburger, the character Bacon Cheeseburger. Yeah. I mean, like, let's get into the weird. Let's get into the weird shit.
Good. You're the first person who's ever mentioned that after looking at my IMDb, which is I'm glad that you have.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, we're about getting into as weird as possible.
We've told you we love the deep cuts.
Yeah.
So tell us about bacon.
So bacon cheeseburger, the reason that even started was Dylan Mars Greenberg, who was somebody who worked at Troma, very young person, started at Troma at 17.
Oh wow!
But at that point had already made like 2 feature films, right? So that's like a prolific person to begin with. Now forget it. I think they're up to 8 features. But we became great friends, and I was always asked to be in the movies. And whatever, I would do little cameos, this and that. But every time it would be like, what should your character's name be? And the first one, I was like, just call it Bacon Cheeseburger. And Dylan thought that was really funny. So then now we have a running thing where every single movie that I do where I'm in Dylan's movie, no matter what the character does or says or is, I'm Bacon Cheeseburger.
Bacon Cheeseburger. All right, I can dig it.
It's really funny. And I got a really great part in Reagitator.
Yeah.
And it's a parody of, horror movies. And I have the big climactic scene where I'm like saying, fuck New York, fuck this, but I'm eating a hot dog. But my name is still Bacon Cheeseburger.
Of course. Of course. And therein lies the humor.
I think.
Dude.
That's called layers, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. I've written a lot of songs about food, so I think that's where it stems from.
Yeah.
Well, so what do you have coming up with Troma that we can look for?
Well, with Troma, we still haven't done an official wide release of hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm. We're still in our festival run.
Okay.
You could go to shakespeareshitstorm.com and see where we're screening. You could see we overwhelmingly positive praise. I didn't expect this for a Troma movie. I was bracing myself for like really bad reviews, but we've gotten great reviews, and some of them are up on our site. So that's the main thing. We're hoping that, after this Friday, we could start to play some drive-ins. And then when the theaters come back, that's the next step. We put out Shakespeare Shitstorm for real, and we do like a Uncle Loydy Shitstorm road tour.
Hell yeah. That would be awesome.
Dude.
I'd love to see it. Maybe we'll come see you in person when that happens. We
absolutely will come see that.
Hell yeah. I would love to travel around with Shitstorm and see what people think. Because it's a very... It's a movie of the times, but it's also a movie that Lloyd is sort of summing up his whole career.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, if this is my last movie, that's great. And he's good with it. So I hope it's not his last movie, but he is making a statement with this movie that's the culmination of 50 years of personal filmmaking for Lloyd and 46 years of Troma. I mean, no matter what you think about Troma or how good the movies is, whatever, 46 years as a company, an independent company, is insane.
Well, it's the oldest independent film studio, isn't it?
Or, Lloyd likes to say the longest running because he doesn't know technically if it definitely is the oldest, but the longest running from start to finish with the same guys in charge.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So Lloyd's a stickler for vocab. Yeah,
well, and exactly. One thing that impressed me, I saw, I don't remember what it was. It was a documentary I watched on Shudder, but at some point in the documentary they talked about safety on film sets and
it was
safety
cursed films. Cursed films.
It was cursed films. Yeah, and it didn't shock me, but I was really impressed with the footage of Lloyd on set, admonishing the fuck out of someone for being unsafe on set. And he was like, do you understand we don't have a budget to save your fucking life?
Yeah, it's true. There's times where, we're talking to Lloyd about the scene, and he'll be looking at the floor. He's like, why is that wire bar? And it's like, all right, you're right, Lloyd. Everybody, but it was really almost, it was like, I started to then walk around the set and do what he did and be like, why is this here? Why is that there? And you start to realize that if people are careless and left to their own devices on a movie set, especially a crew that's mostly volunteers or whatever, things could get dangerous. Yeah. And that episode was really heartbreaking to me when I saw the footage, and I like that they juxtaposed the idea that Lloyd Kaufman has been doing this for this many years and has never had a major accident on a set.
Yep. Well, it was interesting because they juxtaposed it with not Landis,
John Landis,
with John Landis, right? Who is this sort of epoch of a filmmaker, and they juxtaposed that with Lloyd, that it was this guy made Toxic Avenger, but none of his people have died ever.
And I think Lloyd Kaufman did that interview wearing a tutu, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, he was in drag, and it was on the set of Shakespeare shitstorm.
Oh, okay, yeah, but it's great because Lloyd Kaufman immediately appears. He's wearing this ridiculous outfit, but he comes off looking like the serious filmmaker and the person who actually cares about human life compared to like John Landis.
And that's the other thing that struck me is that when he talks about it, he's not talking about it from a I need to make sure that I'm covered financially perspective. It's I care about the people on this set on a human level. Like,
the three rules of production for Troma, this is for every movie that they've ever done, is safety to humans, safety to people's property, and then really small below those two is make a good movie.
Yeah.
Right, because the last one's optional, right?
Right. It doesn't matter. Like, if you don't make the good movie, so what? As long as the people are alive.
Right.
Yeah.
So we talked about how you've done everything from clean the toilets to direct the films. Where do you feel most at home? Is it producing, editing, doing music, directing? When you're doing it, what feels like you feel the most passionate about that role?
Well, the thing that comes easiest to me is the music. I've written now probably 700 songs, maybe more.
Wow.
And I've only recorded like a small selection of them, 15% perhaps. And that just is almost like compulsive to me. I need to do it, and then if it's in my head, I need to get it out, because if it was in my head, I would go nuts.
Yeah,
sure, sure.
So, but as far as like creatively, I like personally writing and directing and editing, all three, because I feel like the writing is the first draft, the directing is the second draft, and the editing is the third draft.
Yeah.
Ooh,
and I feel like those are all, they're all hand in hand.
Agreed.
In fact, I would have a very difficult time watching someone else edit my footage because it's almost like authoring it again a whole nother time.
I feel the same way. I've edited all my own pieces, and I can't imagine it any other way. And because it really is even maybe more so than the director on set, the editor is determining how this story is told.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Especially if it's your vision, right? Like if it's your vision that started in your head, how is somebody else going to be able to cut that together?
Yeah, I've struggled with certain times where I've not been in the editor seat, just trying to tell them like how it will work, how it will be good, and then it's like they won't do it, or they'll think that they know better, and I hope that they die. But that's a whole other story for another time. But I actually really, really like that process of doing the three different drafts of the movie.
Sure.
So I'm actually this year I'm going to produce and direct two very lo-fi movies, completely lo-fi. I mean, I'm talking like $3,000 at most. As an experiment to see, because I haven't directed a proper feature yet. I've only done shorts, but I've done hundreds of shorts at this point. So I think I'm ready for the next step.
Hell yeah. And are you planning on like doing what you talked about earlier, is shooting that on iPhone or something like that?
Yes. Yeah. I've been researching the iPhone stuff, and essentially anything that's in our pocket at this point in time, as Filmic Pro is an app that you can control it with, and it's if you shoot in 4K. And then you grade it later, it'll be fine.
And you can even get the lens attachments.
The lens attachments, all that. I have all the stuff lined up. I ordered a gimbal. I ordered all this stuff.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready to do it, because it's like I sort of pushed it off to make a feature all this time, because I felt like, all right, Troma's my film school. I learned this, I learned that. And then The Last Drive-In surprised me. So I've been busy with that for 2 or 3 years. And now I think it's time that I put out my ridiculous ideas of what a movie could be.
Sure.
So can you tell us anything about what that's going to be?
Well, I haven't zeroed in on the exact thing. One of them I definitely can't tell you, because somebody will steal it.
That's fair.
I'm not usually a paranoid person, but it's based in a franchise that I think if I tell the people what the idea would be, it would be gone.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's fair.
I feel you.
But one thing I definitely want to do, and it may not be the exact next one, but it's do you know Zach Amico?
No, tell me.
Okay, Zach Amico's a very great comedian. He has his own podcast, the Zach Amico Spook Show, but he also starred in a few Troma movies.
Okay.
I'd like to make a Dracula movie with Zach as the lead, but make it called Gross Ferratu instead of Nosferatu, and make it the most disgusting Dracula movie ever. Disgusting Dracula,
Well, you can disgusting is broad. What kind of disgusting are we talking about?
Every kind of disgusting. I want like the most gore. I want like people eating food and close-ups and puke, like just really disgusting. Anything that we could think of that would gross people out.
Hell yeah.
Also have like a nice story. Dracula has a pretty good story for it.
But it has to be gross. It has to be gross.
It has to be just the most disgusting ever. And Zach is a great actor. We did a short called Kabuki Man versus Dracula, where Zach played. He almost did like a Gary Oldman version of Dracula, and he's great. So that's one that I definitely want to do.
Did he have the boob-shaped haircut?
No, we didn't have the budget for it, but he definitely slicked his hair back. He looked very handsome, and he was like seducing men and women.
There
it was
you go.
Great.
Yeah, because Dracula's an omnivore. I've always felt like, right?
Oh yeah.
Why would he stop at like human norms of sexuality?
No, there's no. In fact, I don't even think that the people know what kind. It's like an extra sexual.
Right.
Is what
extra
Dracula is.
Sexual.
Yeah.
I like that
he
term.
Just like it's all about taking the soul and the life out of you.
And what is that but extra, right?
It's extra.
So I want to talk a little bit more about, you said how much you love doing music on sets. What's your background with music? Did you start off playing in bands and doing that kind of thing?
No, I started out home recording. So I used to make music. When I first started, I had an XL1 video camera. Mm-hmm. Remember those, the DV cams?
Oh,
yeah.
They were sort of, actually, I didn't know this, but that's what they shot like the Howard Stern show on E! Entertainment Television. So I had like a pretty professional camera.
Yeah.
I didn't know it at the time, but it had this great mic. And I used to make bits and pieces of songs. And then since I had Final Cut, I would edit and mix in Final Cut all the stuff that I would do. So I learned how to make an album, basically just doing bits and pieces through the XL1, importing it into the editing thing, and then mixing. So I did that for like 10 years.
Wow.
And then fast forward another 5 years, whatever, until I got to Troma. And then Matt Mangiarides asked me to do a knockoff of Goodbye Horses by Q Lazarus. You know that song?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a part in Return to Nukem High Volume 2 where Lloyd tucks his dick and does the Buffalo Bill dance.
Right.
and they couldn't afford Goodbye Horses, so they needed the knockoff, and I was able to do something that sounded good. In fact, the greatest compliment, or one of that I ever got in my life, was we were shooting that scene in Lloyd's house, and Lloyd was tucking his dick, and like it was crazy. He had to like electrical tape it back, and but his wife came home and she didn't know he was doing this scene. And now I didn't really know Pat Kaufman that well at the time, but she's an amazing person. She was the New York State Film Commissioner for 30 years. I mean, amazing, brilliant woman. So she comes and she's like, I can't believe you're doing this. She's like flipping out. And then she goes, and on top of it all, we're going to get sued because you're using that goddamn song. And Lloyd's like, no, John Brennan wrote this song. And she's like, really? Oh, that sounds very good, John. Yes. And it cut the tension, and then all of a sudden she's like directing him. She's like, no, he doesn't dance like that in the movie, and she got into it, and it became a classic scene.
She's like, you have to tuck it back further.
Yeah, she's like, pull it back. So, but it really was like an amazing thing, because like that was the moment that cut the tension. She's like, oh, it's a knockoff, and you did that. Oh.
I mean, and you can't make that shit up.
No,
like, that's amazing.
And everybody, we all were like, oh shit, she's gonna shut this down. She's gonna stop it. And it was like so funny.
I feel like you can't be married to Lloyd Kaufman and be shocked if you come home and find him shooting a scene with his dick tape back, though.
Yeah, I love the fact that he didn't tell her that they were even filming in the home, and there was like 20 of us in the living room as she comes back from like the gym or whatever it was.
Again, though, I feel like if you're married to Lloyd Kaufman, like that's not the sort of thing that's going to shock you when you come home.
Yeah, I'm convinced that's not a 10 on the Lloyd Kaufman scale.
Yeah,
you know?
like that's like a 3.
Oh no. I'm sure he's done a lot worse, but she also Pat is an amazing person, and I'll admit it. When I first heard that she was going to produce the movie with us, I was like, oh no, with Shakespeare Shitstorm. And only because I didn't know her personally, but now that I've worked with her, she is an amazing producer. She's also the Lloyd whisperer. She was able to stop Lloyd from his flip out. If you watch some of the behind the scenes documentaries of Troma movies, there's always like a montage of Lloyd flipping out and screaming and going nuts and carrying on and delaying shooting. There were times when Lloyd was boiling to that point on Shakespeare Shitstorm, and Pat would be like, no, wait, Lloyd, and then explain it to him, and he'd be like, okay, and then we would get right on schedule.
Oh, that's great.
Well, and that's, you know what, that's hashtag relationship goals right there.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And when she was on Joe Bob and they were on together, I loved watching them, because I got that impression immediately, like, wow, she's a really smart woman. I love that she has this prestige of her job, but like her and Lloyd have this strong connection, and she's able to understand both sides of this film world, and she's able to understand like the film world is all of those things. It's a spectrum from everything of like what Lloyd believes in to like whatever name your Oscar-winning director believes in. You know, that there is no distinction that makes one film and one not.
Absolutely. She also shepherded and helped write the New York State Film Incentive, which brought in so many people, not just independents, but all kinds of people from Hollywood to shoot in New York. And it was really a great thing for the state. So Pat Kaufman, I love that woman. She's great.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, shout out, Pat.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, John, is there anything else that you've got coming up that you would like to tell our listeners about?
Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, so tomorrow, the last drive-in, December 11th, we got the Joe Bob Saves Christmas. You're going to love it, or at least you're going to love part of it and then complain about it, because that seems to be the...
Good, because Christmas needs saving, right? It hasn't had a good clean saving since Ernest did the job, right?
Ernest, yeah.
Exactly. Ernest was the last person I know of that saved Christmas in an appropriate fashion.
So there's that, and then just check out. I have a record out, actually a box set of all 4 vinyls that now you could get, which is the first vinyl that we put out, which was the theme song. Mm-hmm. Then we put out the EP. Now we're putting out. Then we put out the Blood-Sucking Freaks, Chris Jericho vinyl.
Sure,
totally.
Now we have a Red Christmas and Merry Red Christmas vinyl.
What?
Yes, my
and
jams.
When is this dropping? Because like I just re-upped my vinyl setup, so like
yeah, I think Black Friday.
Okay.
But by the time this is released, it'll be out. So yeah, they're reissuing all of the past ones. Then they have a new Christmas one, and it comes in this like really awesome carrying case.
Hell yeah!
All from Ship to Shore Phono Co. So if you're interested in any of the vinyl stuff, Ship to Shore Phono Co. And you'll see it's a box set of the last drive-in music.
Hell
beautiful,
cool.
Yeah,
that's
it's awesome.
awesome.
To me, I love all of Justin Osborne. I forgot his name, but this art behind me. See this stuff?
Yeah.
The same guy does all of it, but to me, the best one so far is the one with the Red Christmas, because it's Phantasm themed.
Yes.
You gotta see it. Sick.
Oh, I love that one too.
Yeah.
And now to me, forever Phantasm is like linked with Christmas.
Yeah.
Yep.
It didn't really have that.
If he's
for me
done nothing
before.
else, Joe Bob has successfully associated Phantasm with Christmas.
He's making a different world for the next generation,
Exactly.
whatever that may be.
Absolutely. I love it. I love being a part of it. I really appreciate you guys.
Oh, no worries, man.
Talking to me, and yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
John, we appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, man,
Means
we
a lot.
appreciate you taking time to be with us. Thank you so much, John.
Of course.
Take it easy and Merry Christmas.
Same to you.
All right, bud.
Yeah, we'll talk to you again soon.
Hell yeah.